Hey, what's going on, everyone? If some of you might have watched some other videos, we're putting together a adaptive controller and different things that you can use with adaptive controller, especially the Xbox Microsoft adaptive controller that some of you out there are familiar with. Something that I've looked for quite a while are some big buttons. You know, we've been playing around with little arcade buttons, but what I would like to get my hands on are some of the bigger buttons, kind of like this. And there are some out there, but they're just more expensive than I would like to pay. I found some for $10 a piece is about the cheapest I could find them, which I think is just, it's too high. It's too high. So in this video, we're going to see if we can get these things to work. So I got some buttons, learning resources. And what these are little buzzers. So like game show, if you want to play a game with the kids and you're asking questions, they can buzz in. So when you press these buttons, they make noises. We're going to see if we can use these, repurpose them for using them in an Xbox adaptive controller. I bought these on Amazon quite a while ago, and they were about $20 or a little under $20 for 4 of them. Still a little bit more expensive than I would like to pay. There might be the same idea, different sources. You might be able to get them cheaper, and that would be great. But I wanted to see if it would work, and Amazon's just so dang easy to buy things that I went with them. So anyway, this is a concept, and we'll see if it works. My name is Preston. Welcome to Enabled. Let's see what we got. So here's one of the buttons that I took out of the box. As you can see, it's pretty good size. It's about the size that I wanted. The idea is that if you can't use your fingers, it's big enough that you can use your entire fist and you can press on it, or maybe back in the arm, or you might be able to put it up next to your head and use your head to activate it. Now it is kind of noisy, but that's okay. Right now we just care about whether or not it works. I think this would be good for something like playing a game where you have to hold a button to move faster. If you can just lay your arm on it maybe and use your hand to press other buttons, that would work pretty well. But we'll figure that out later. Right now we'll just see if it works. So if we look on the bottom side, there are 4 little rubber pads that act as grips. And what we need to do is take those off, and we'll see screw heads hidden. And then we want to take these 4 screws out. We want to remove these 4. So that's going to take a little Phillips, I think. So I need to get a screwdriver and remove those. These are also battery powered. They don't come with batteries, but there is a battery compartment here. The way we're going to use it, we don't need batteries. So we don't even have to open this. So let me get a screwdriver, remove these, and we'll see how it comes apart. I got the 4 screws removed, and when I got the last one undone, it basically wants to fall apart. So this is what it looks like. See how it easily moves. So let's see. I'm just going to lift this up slowly. Oh, there's nothing under there. So that's interesting. All right, so it looks like all the complicated stuff is on the bottom side, and then the top is just a simple button and a ring to hold it together. That's good. I like simple. So we're going to set this over here, and we're going to focus on the complicated side. So what we're looking for, it looks like when you press on the button, this feature right here presses down on this center button. So if I press on this, that's where that click comes from. And what that's doing is this metal piece that's formed, so it acts like a spring, is separated from whatever's underneath of there when it's in the released position. And then when you press on it, you're actually pressing this top metal piece into whatever's below it. So that's a pretty simple design, and one that I think we can use fairly easily. So all we need to do is find a point that connects this to whatever's under it when it's pressed. To do that, we need a multimeter of some kind. So I've got this guy here. This is a fluke meter, but of course you don't need anything nearly that fancy. Harbor Freight sells a similar thing for $6, so that would work fine. But really, if this works for me, then you can just copy what I do, and you don't have to do this at all. So first, I'm going to probe this ground. So we have a black wire and a red wire that is running to the battery box. And we're going to see, I'm guessing one or the other of these is going to be connected to this button top. So I'm going to try ground. And that isn't, so I'm going to try the positive one, the red one. There it is. So what that means is the red wire, which I assume is probably the positive end of the battery, is connected to the top of the button. So now we need to figure out what is connected when this button is pressed. And in order to do that, we're just going to take one of our probes, we're going to press down on the button, and then we're going to go around with the other probe and figure out what's connected. So that's connected. That's connected. So there's one here, that's an option. There's one up here, that's an option. So let's then let up on it, so now it's not connected, and we'll see if any of those are still connected. That one is, but that one is not. So I'm going to hold my probe on that one and press the button. There it's connected, there it's not. There it's connected, there it's not. So that's what we want to solder to. So what we're going to do is we're going to solder a wire here, or we can solder it here. And we're going to solder a second wire to this pad right here. Let me get it up closer. So this pad right here, and somewhere on this wire, either here where the solder joint is, or we can solder it here at the other end. And that should work. Let's try it out. Alright, so we know what we need to solder to. Now we have to figure out how to route a wire inside of it. So on an Xbox controller, Xbox adaptive controller, you can plug in these 1/8" connectors, or 3.5 millimeters, depending on which side of the world you're on. This here I bought on eBay in bulk, so this is a TRS, I think. It's a mono connector, so there's only 2 connections on it, and that's all we need for this switch because it's either off or on. There are no other signals. So there's only 2 wires inside of this cable. Now another option you can do is buy these with 2 ends on them and then cut them in half, and then you have 2 cables that you can use for multiple buttons. So we have to figure out how to get this wire through this black ring and into our board. So what you need to do is put the black ring back on there. Now it only goes on there one way, so make sure that the holes are lined up properly, and then we can try and figure out a convenient path. So there's a pretty good sized cavity right here. I think that's where we want to route it. That way there's plenty of room, there's nothing in the way. So what we'll do is drill a hole in the side of this black ring, and then we'll route our wire through there, and then we'll solder it, and then we'll see if we can put our button back together. Here we are. I got a hole drilled into our plastic ring. I drilled it to 0.14 inches diameter, or that's the bit I use because that's the closest bit I had to whatever the diameter of this thing is. You basically just start small and keep going up until the cable feeds through. So I fed my cable through, and what you want to do is tie a knot in it. Tie a knot in it so that if this gets pulled or jerked or something, you're not going to pull on the solder joints, because if you pull on these, it's definitely going to break and your button won't work anymore. So tie a knot in it, because I guarantee you it will happen. Somebody will accidentally pull on these or trip over it or whatever. So we got that going. Now we'll test fit it in our button. Looks okay. I think I'm going to attach the red wire to the red thing and the black wire to the other thing, just for consistency. And then we want to cut these wires that go to the battery, just in case somebody got smart and decided to put a battery in it. You don't want to be running any kind of current or electricity through our plug here. So we're just going to snip those and solve that problem. And then we'll see if we can get our button back on. For soldering, you've seen me do this before. I put a little bit dollop of solder on the one terminal that we have to solder to, and then I'm just going to take the wire and a hole over the top of that, and I'm just going to put the soldering iron on it and press down, and that should melt the wire into the solder, just like that. And for the other one, there's already solder here from the factory. So we're going to hold that second wire over the top of it, do the same thing. We're going to press down. Maybe. Just like that. And then I'm just going to desolder these. You could cut them. We'll get the black one completely out of the way so we don't have to worry about it shorting on anything. And that should be it. I'm going to put a little bit more solder over the top of that because it didn't solder very good. And then we'll try putting our button on. Got a little crazy with soldering iron and melted a little bit of my ring, but yeah, it's alright. We'll just pretend that didn't happen. And then we got to fit this button in here. So I think if we angle it just right, we can get it underneath that wire. And then it looks like it's got little slots in it where it fits in there a certain way. So I'm just going to keep rotating it until something magical happens. There it is. And then we should be able to put this back on. Should go something like that, I think. Nope. Like this. Like this. Nope. Believe I'm 180 off. Nope. Nope. Well, why in the world is this so difficult for me to understand? Here we go. There. Alright, now we put our screws back in. Okay, now we'll do a quick beep check. We're going to take our multimeter again, we're going to put it in beep mode. Got our two probes here. So what will happen is when the button is not pressed down like it is now, the two connections on the end of the connector will not beep. So we should be able to hold the two probes here and it doesn't beep. And then whenever we press it down, it should beep. Hey, how about that? And it's hard for me to show you on the camera exactly what I'm doing. And push the button and hold the probes. But that's doing what we wanted to do. So the very final test we'll do is plug this into the Xbox controller and see if it works. Put my feet back on. Now an alternate method to the cable that we have permanently installed in the button, you could mount a 3.5mm jack inside of the button. So I've done that here just for display purposes. What I did is I drilled a hole in the side of the ring just like we did for the cable, except instead of running a cable through there, I took a 3.5mm jack and I put it through there instead. And then, because I like to use as much as I can, I just took the two battery wires, desoldered them from the battery connectors, or you could cut them and strip them if you wanted to. And I use those to attach to the 3.5mm jack. So I desoldered them here. The black one I had to desolder from the location that it was on the board and move it over to the same pad that we used before. And then the red wire was already soldered where we wanted it, so I just took it from here and ran it to my jack. And that gives you a really clean and professional look. The downside is that you have to pay more money for the connector, but this I got off of Adafruit, and I'll put all the information down in the description. These are less than $1 a piece, so for me it's well worth it. The other thing that I like about this is if someone were to trip on this or something, it would just pull out of the jack and you don't have to worry about yanking on this cable and damaging something on the inside. The other advantage to doing it this way is you can use, I'm building several of these buttons and joysticks and whatever, and I have the cables that are just 3.5mm on both ends. So one end will plug in here and the other end will plug into the Xbox adaptive controller. And I can use the same cables for several different buttons. So if I don't want this button, for example, in whatever game I'm playing or configuration I'm playing, I can just unplug that cable and use it for a different button. Whereas this one, you need the cable for every single button. So if I'm not using this button, then that's just a wasted cable. So there's pros and cons to both. If you want the absolute cheapest way, this is probably it. But if you have multiple ones of these, I think this is a better way to go. We'll test both of these whenever we pull the controller in here. Okay, now we have our Xbox adaptive controller pulled up here. And we got our two buttons here, so I'm going to plug this guy in to something. Let's just say the up position. I really like this short cord. That's super convenient. So even though this cord is short, that's not necessarily a bad thing. What you can do is plug this into an extension cord. They make headphone extension cords. You can buy those almost anywhere, and you can plug that in and get as long as you want. And then this guy will plug in. We got a connector here, or a cable, I mean. So my cable is actually a TRRS cable, which means it has 4 different connections on there. Even though we're only using 2 of them, this will still work. I buy these in bulk again, and I just get the TRRS because it'll work for everything that I do, so I don't have to have separate cables for each case. And then I'm going to plug it into, let's just plug it into the X button. And then we're going to pull my screen up here, and this is the hardest thing. I gotta do the camera for you guys, and then also share my screen and record that, and somehow put them together in editing, and that's just a real pain. Okay, so we want to go to test mode, and I'm in the Xbox Accessories app, which is available in the Windows Store. All right. And it says that the X button is pressed. So that's weird. That's not supposed to happen. That means that something is shorted here. All right. So I'm not sure why that's not working. It's very possible that I wired it wrong, because I just guessed whenever I when I put the wires in there. Or it could be this cable. I know I have one bad cable, and I probably didn't throw it away. I just put it right back where I got it, so that was smart. So let's try this other one. It's plugged into the up button, and it seems to work exactly like we want it to. Cool. I tore this guy apart just to see if I could figure out why it wasn't reading correctly on the Xbox. And it took me a minute, but the problem was I had the red wire, which is going to the positive terminal, which was on the battery post. I had that on the center terminal of the jack, and then I had the black wire, which is on the other pad that we soldered to on the side terminal of the jack. And apparently it matters. I didn't think it would matter, but that's what the problem was. So I swapped those two, and then I plugged it in to my Xbox controller, and now it seems to work. So I've got it plugged into the up position. So if I press the button, the up button is pressed. Then if I switch it over to, let's just say, the X button, and I press the button, now it's pressed. So I'm glad we got that figured out. Makes me feel a little bit better. Just know that if you use this method, it does matter which wire goes where. Well, I'm glad that worked. So I think this is a viable option if you're looking for larger buttons to work with an adaptive controller. You can convert one of these toy buzzers into a usable button. That's all there is for this one. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something. I know I did. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. I've got some other things I'm going to build with these adaptive controllers. I got some pretty unique things that I'm excited to share. I just haven't quite got it all together yet, but when I do, I'm going to share that video. Hope to see you next time.